Good afternoon. My name is Lasse Andersson. I'm the director of Kunsten Museum of Modern Art in Aalborg. And welcome to Danish Global Culture Talks, a series of talks brought to you in collaboration with our friends from Nordic.la, and it's generously supported by Spar Nord Foundation and the region of North Jutland. The talks have emerged out of an urgent need to debate art and the culture in an ever-changing global context, and the current COVID-19 crisis have somehow made this even more urgent to debate. We hope that you out there in the audience will take part in the debate. So if you are following us on Kunsten.la, on Facebook stream, or on our YouTube channel, use the chat function and post question, and then we'll gather the questions and have a round in the end of today's session. The session today is co-hosted with Moderna Museet in Stockholm, so thank you for that. And the theme kind of evolves around what does art provide for society in a time of crisis? And how do we make sure that it doesn't disappear and that it keeps giving us shared experiences and source of individual contemplation and reflection? Is it the artists, the art museums, the galleries, the private companies, or is it collectors or someone else that has to keep this in mind? To get the debate running, I have 3 guests today, and also all of them with an interesting background in relation to arts and culture. The first one is Ersko. Welcome, Gitte.
Thank you.
You are the director of Moderna Museet in Stockholm, and you are the former director of Kunsten here in Aalborg. Mm-hmm. For several years, you were also the chairwoman of the Danish Arts Foundation. And welcome to our second guest, Anders Byrel. Anders, you're the CEO of Kvadrat since 1998, also owner of Kvadrat. And Kvadrat fabrics have been used in architectural and cultural landmarks around the world, just to mention a few, like the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg, the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris, or Museum of Modern Art in New York. And then you and also Kvadrat is known as patrons of the arts and also use it actively in developing the company to that is today. And the last person hiding behind a orange door, that is Bjørnstjerne Christiansen. Hi Bjørnstjerne, you are part of the group Superflex, founded in 1993 together with Finger and Rasmus Nielsen. And you are taking on a diverse and complex practice, and you are interested in the role of artists in contemporary society. So really happy to have you all here. Every session starts with a long introduction from me, but then starts the fun. And we have invited either artists or musicians for every talk to give a performance or studio tour. And today it's a tour of Superflex's fantastic office or factory in Copenhagen. And we do that because we're debating art and culture, but what it's all about is actually what it means to us, what kind of experiences we get, shared or individually. So Bjørnstjerne, now you have the next 4 or 5 minutes to give us a tour. I look forward to it. Bjørnstjerne, we are lacking sound on you.
Now I hope the sound is on.
Sound is on.
Good. So this is a former transformer station that we have taken over a little more than 1 year ago. We went from office on street level, coming from the Art Academy, and now having a factory to work in. I will guide you up here. We will move up to the sky level. Moving up here. And here is the possibility of experimentation on a very big scale. You can see, very gigantic room. Here in the middle, we have one of our pink structures called Dive In. It's a project we're working on for quite a long time, which is about deep sea minding. which is about interspecies living. It's about how we will adapt to vertical migration. And this structure was in the desert in Palm Springs. It looked like this, 5 times as big. And then during nighttime, it changed into this. So fish were interacting. So it was a dive-in for humans and for fish. Now we will go into surface level. This was very up high. So we move. Different works. You can see this is actually one of the objects from Superflex, a park we developed in Copenhagen. We will now dive in to the deep. This is a three-level building. So follow me.
They went really deep.
Let's call it the surface. We still have information from back in the days. Transformator, one direction, dangerous. So now we dive into the deep, as we like to call it. Different studios. We try to transform this place from being made for a machine that is transforming energy to being a place for humans, for artists to play and work. Following me this way. Mind your step. This is what we call our material library. This is where we experiment with materials of all kinds, small and big scale. One of the things we're very focused on at the moment is how fish think and understand and their desires. And we look very much into materials, so we've been diving in and finding out of sponges. The big qualities that have is that water can go in and out, like almost like breathe. And we transform that into a hard material, porcelain material. That enables us to be curious, to learn, and in the future maybe develop a new kind of brick, a new kind of sculpture material that we can use as artists. But foremost also challenging the whole industry and the whole notion and understanding of how we live, how we want to live in the future, and what we leave behind us when we humans at some point maybe are not so present and relevant anymore. Here you have another illustration of a big project we did. Some of you saw it in Copenhagen at the Copenhagen CT and at the Tate Modern, the Turban Mall. It's a work called 1, 2, 3 Swing. This basically circles the orange line all around the world. Among others, at the moment, it's permanent at the border between North and South Korea in what's called the demilitarized zone. So you're sitting on the side of South Korea, looking into North Korea, 3 people together, swinging, trying to set things into motion, and imagining what it would mean and what the perspective is of not having this border anymore. Getting closer to each other through a transformative process. Here we have our library, and actually up here, if you look up, is where me, Rasmus, and Jacob normally sit during the daytime. So we're together, the 3 of us working there. And here is the library where we have a lot of our research and background materials, some works from work here called Hospital Equipment, that we exhibited the whole operational room. One-to-one in a museum, then free in Denmark, and then after the exhibition it was sent directly into action work in a hospital in Gaza 2 years ago. Maybe that's the end of the introduction. I will now sit down and prepare myself for the continuing session.
Thank you, Bjørn Stjerne, and thank you for dive into your factory in Copenhagen. So now we'll start discussing today's topic and themes. And the first question I would like to start with is, what does art provide for society in a time of crisis? And Gitte, you are heading I think I can say one of Europe's biggest and most important museums. I think you will agree on that. And how do you answer the question seen from Moderna in Stockholm with a closed museum right now? What does art provide for society in a time of crisis?
Well, I actually think I want to change the question and ask, what can society do for the arts? And the reason why I'm doing that is because, I mean, we need art more than ever. We need art to digest. We need art to understand. We need art to approach the current situation we're in. And we know that what we do is that we dive into the history of art. I don't think I have seen so many Edward Hopper works on the internet as I do right now to describe the situation we're in. And the paradox is, in a time where we need art more than ever, then art is also one of the industries that is hit by the crisis. If you ask the galleries, 5%. Museums all over the world are sending home. They are firing people. It's an art world that is extremely hit by the crisis. And 99% of all artists, they actually are living on the edge economically. So my question is not what can art do for society, because art can do a lot, but I'm asking, what can society do for the arts? How can society stimulate production of art? How can society make a framework for artists to still produce art? How can we take a collective responsibility for the production of art? And that's why I think that in the European context, within the last 10 years, we have seen that the art world has been more and more dependent on private investigations. And this is not bad, this is good. But this means that a lot of governments have withdrawn their support for the arts. Now it's time for the political reality to face that art is a collective thing in society. So this is my first response to the question. And what we do at Moderna, for example, right now is that, and we are hit as well. I mean, financially, it's a catastrophe for us as well. But we see how can we support the singular artist in continuing producing art. This is our main purpose.
Yeah. Interesting to kind of turn it around, and I could bounce it to you, Anders. How do you, from your side, you're working a lot with artists, designers, and architects, just as part of running Kvadrat. How do you keep working in these times?
Yeah, but I think just to follow also not but following Gitte's thing, I really feel art is a kind of a glue in society. It's some of the thing that makes things stick together. And I think also now that people are sitting home, they're realizing I saw somebody posting this, how would life be without art? That you couldn't see Netflix, you couldn't read a great book, I couldn't look at the beautiful art that I have at my home. How would it be? So we, in a way, art is just so important. I think for society, it's a glue. It gives, what Gitte is also saying, it's sometimes helping, giving us meaning. I don't know, Bjørn, you will help us if it gives us meaning. But also for me as an individual, and actually also the people working here, it's often it's a mental break, and so art is really, and it's a stimuli, so it's extremely important. And also for us as a business, we decided we have, of course, also we're sailing into the big storm like museum and many others, and we're doing pretty okay. We're probably in a medium scenario, and we've been saving probably 30% of all non-people costs but the only thing we haven't been saving on is actually our art program and our support of the art. And so we still have a full pipeline of, unfortunately, a lot of it is postponed, but we actually today we're also brainstorming, could we do something to support, maybe try to go digital also with our art collaboration. So I think art is extremely important, and I'm not sure art is actually giving you comfort. I'm not sure, but at least I think it's very important when we are in this empty space at home sitting, and in a way we also need to think of post-COVID, that we'll have a life on the other side, and art of course needs to make it to the other side. So I'm agreeing with Gitte that art is very exposed now. On the other hand, I just think somehow art is very resilient. So art, I think art is, you could also, now I'm in a way should be the commercial guys, but you could also say art has maybe also become pretty commercial. So maybe you could also, if I should challenge you, you're the closer to art. Maybe it's also okay. It's not okay you can't pay your rent, but maybe it's also okay to do a pushback on like something like Basel will maybe never ever come back. Maybe it's a good thing that people go back to visiting galleries, go where they actually are situated. They go back to visiting the artists. They go. So I think that's at least also a reflection. Where is the art world going to go? And maybe it's in some ways maybe it can be also healthy to kind of stop. The art world also needs to stop and rethink.
Yeah. Bjørn, just to loop you in, because I know you just had to find your place, that Gitte's kind of said that what can society do for the arts, and Anders, he followed up. How's that seen from the artists? Because he also mentions that artists are struggling at the moment. So how can we kind of support? And do you see this kind of thinking also coming from? Gitte mentioned that it's mainly have been private foundations and companies supporting the last decades. How is it seen from you as an artist in these times?
I think maybe Superflex could be an answer to some of the questions that have been raised by that we try to expand our notion of the collective. So we do not anymore be so egocentric, human-centric also, that we are so focused on our own positions and our own sphere. Because one thing we really learned now, all of us, is that we are part of a very expanded collective. We are not. It's not them or us anymore. It is really a collective we. The understanding of how we are very interwoven now together. So Superflex itself, we started going from one single artist perspective to passing on our artistic identity to the collective and the artist Superflex. So I believe that what now is really needed is a more collective mindset and also a change of perspective. Because we as humans, we know, like animals and organisms around us, are able to adapt and through that also transform. That was why in the beginning I also wanted you to understand that we also went through a transformation. We even physically now go into a transformer station, a former transformer station. Now it becomes an art production site. So I think in general, one should really also, as Anna said before, maybe Art Basel is not there anymore, something else comes. So adaptation and how we also push adaptation. And here I'm thinking about that, maybe some spaces that are now empty, not in use, should automatically, for the future also, just be transformed very easily into the, let's say, Charlottenburg in Copenhagen. Since it cannot be used as an art space for 5-6 months, it turns into a school, like spaces for kids and so on. Because, for example, in Denmark, kids that go to a school that are from the 6th grade and up are mostly likely not gonna be able to go to school at all this semester, first after August. So I think we have to be much more transformative, adaptive, with this idea about that it's not them or us, it is the collective we. So we need to adapt, transform on a much bigger scale, and we as artists should lead, should be examples of how it is possible. Like cross borders and so on, but also through social fields, social levels of our society. And again, why stick to I think it's a healthy kick in the balls, excuse my language, that we also are being challenged in not so much looking at something that is permanent and so on, because nothing has ever been permanent. Everything changes over time. So I think it's time to also think about that functions and so on are also temporary. Even our place in the planet's history is also temporary. Just to give the big scope. But I think we, as I said before, change, things should be able to change much, much faster. And then it can go back to normal, you could say. So Charlottenburg can change into being a school space, and then in 5 minutes goes back to being Charlottenburg. But the shared experience we then have, and touching and learning and being close to, let's say, an art space, also could then give kids and everyone else a different opinion and thinking about what that space can be used for. Because art is not just an object to look at, it's as much a mentality, a way of thinking. And so I'm as always a very positive person, because I truly believe in the power of adaptation and the collective mind, and on every level. We just need to expand a little more, not only be so human focused.
So you can say that Gitte suggested that we have to see what society do for the arts, and Anders followed, and Bjørnstjerne, you are quite optimistic. So we're also touching upon that something new can arise from this, even though it's a crisis, that it can affect something in a positive way, even though we are struggling at the moment. And we'll get back to that a bit later, because it's really interesting. But I would like to just take it a bit further, because even though we are 3 Danes or 4 Danes sitting here, we also have a global, we have a Danish and a global context of discussing this. And you can say, as we also discussed, for example, everyone are flocking around Netflix and HBO. I'm getting my news from New York Times now. Louisiana Channel, which is an international art channel, is booming. I can attend studio visits around the world, live stream. Now we have done it with Superflex. I know Anders did it with Ryan Gander a short time ago, and we're going to do that again here in the talk series. So we are quarantined physically, but we are kind of expanding kind of the global possibilities. And then it made me kind of reflect on some things. And then I attended a meeting with the Danish Prime Minister and the Culture Minister some weeks ago, discussing the importance of culture in this in a time of crisis. So in fact, some of the things we're discussing now, and I left the meeting also, like Bjørnstjerne, with some kind of positive mind, because it's the first time in, I don't know, decades that a Danish Prime Minister spent 1.5 hours discussing the importance of culture and the arts, and then she prolonged the meeting with half an hour, because interesting things were being discussed. So you can say that's it. But it also tricked me that she said that, because I told about actually what we're doing now, having this talk session, Danish and global, and she said it's important to do things the Danish way, to support Danish arts and these kind of things. And Gitte, that leads me kind of to a question to you, saying that we are talking about global things happening, and then we have to discuss things also in a very kind of narrow way, saying how can we support things in Sweden or in Denmark or somewhere else, depending on where we live. How do you see that, and how does that kind of affect kind of arts and the role of the arts if we start to support, if Moderna only put on Swedish shows?
Well, it's something we are discussing right now, because it's really a balance. Moderna Museet is the National Gallery of Modern Art in Sweden, so we have the biggest collection of Swedish art in Sweden. So we have a strong obligation to acquire Swedish art. And this is what we do now. We are actually in the process of acquiring. We spent a very limited budget, our whole limited budget, on Swedish art. because this is first things first. And it's important for us to be an international global museum based in Stockholm. We need to be not a satellite, but we may need to be part of a context with artists living there, with art schools, with galleries, to connect. The global field should be physically connected. So that's why we start with first things first. This doesn't mean we don't want to work with international artists, but what I do think will happen is that this extremely global art world, which we are all part of, I think this global art world will have another expression, another interface. For example, if you look at the art economy within, not the artist economy, but the art world's economy, an extreme amount of money is spent on transporting works all over the globe, by plane, by boat, and so on, transporting works. And a lot of time is spending on traveling around the world to see art fairs, biennials, exhibitions all over the world, and I think that will change. So I don't see how it will not be changed out of the current situation. But I think we should be extremely aware as art institutions not to close ourselves around the national issues, but we should have the awareness that we can't be global or international without having a local context. So I don't really have a firm answer for that. More that we just need to have this awareness of the national purpose, and to be part of the global context.
Yeah, Anders, seen from you can say that every time I'm in contact with your people, they say, "Can we get it in English?" And you're running a multinational kind of company out of Denmark. So how do you see this saying that if we see it from kind of the national perspective onto the global?
You could say also our business, we got 55 incorporated companies around the world, and we are just setting up in the US now, so we're actually truly global. And of course, the world is changing, and but I have to say also personally, it's also myself, and of course in that way also the business. But I really deeply believe in cosmopolitanism. I really believe in it doesn't really matter where you come from. It's actually what you bring, and that's kind of tattooed on me. So I would say no matter COVID or not, you cannot take it away from me. I'm sorry. It's I don't really care where people are come from. It's more what they bring, and I think as a business, how we developed, which has been quite powerful in our system, that we never tried to be a monoculture. We were always, in the early days when we entered Southern Europe, France, other things, we always connected to the local community. We were always interested in the local communities. We were always curious, and that's also the journey now in Asia that's been very, very exciting. So for me, I have to admit it's tattooed on me, and if Gitte, it's probably going to change. But I think on the other hand, if you look into the Biennales all the way back from when Biennales started, Art Biennales, they survived the world wars and worse things than COVID. That's also when people are sad about COVID, I say, like, be happy, it's not Second World War we're in, it's just COVID, come on. So I think, I really hope, I think things are going to change. I think also now I actually been debating with the Prime Minister in Denmark, and we are not really 100% on the same page. For me, I'm actually, because I see this nationalism, to be friendly, I would call it patriotism, and I'm not very enthusiastic about it. And I think how you should look at it is, I think what's important is more to support is probably that the world is going to be more local. So in a way, that's probably the thing. But that's why I'm sorry that I'm a little extreme on this. but I really don't like. But I see the local thing, and there I see also opportunities with the digital. We're probably gonna, at least for a while, travel less, and we probably also for sustainability reasons need to travel less and change how we are working and living. But so we need to be local. But hopefully, I think it's this exchange and maybe digital tools like we're having this call together, stream together. So I think in that way we'll have to change our how to collaborate and how to work. And but I really hope we can keep this cosmopolitanism, because I really also get it when I look into Danish historical art, when I go into a museum and it's before something. A lot of it for me, it's like they saw something in Paris a little bit, and then they're making some, because the world was not transparent. So the demand to being original today is far bigger, and that makes things far more interesting. So I'm okay. Sorry, it's just now I got it all out. Thank you.
It's okay. That's why we're here, Anders. Bjørnstjerne, you can say that you are international kind of artist superstar working out of Denmark. So do you already feel or see any of these kind of distinction between kind of the local and the global, and how you get kind of new commissions, or is that too early to discuss that?
We have from, say again, day one, when you are 3 people with 3 different minds, you go into a group, and very early on, already at the Art Academy, we were lucky to be introduced to many curators, artists from around the world. We embraced it, and that also is local, you could say. All these people we work with over the years is our local also, in terms of artistic practice and in terms of how we see the world also. Of course, we have to also respect the specific local conditions that are very different in different countries. I think one can again salute that we are living in a welfare system where everyone in Denmark has a rather good position, you could say, at every level compared to so many other places. So let's just get that this elephant in the room stable, right? Or stated. So we believe in open landscapes. My father was an artist. He said, det er kunsten og kunstnerens opgave at åbne landskaber. So in English, it's the artist and the art's mission or purpose to open up the landscapes. It also means that borders are not really relevant, you know. And I think it is our mission also to break them down. Particularly again, in these times, we need to break them down even more, and we need to open them up. Maybe not only break them down, but also open them up. So I see a much more need for inclusion and a need for helping each other across borders. It also means that we should focus on, let's say, education. We should focus on also each one of us. So we travel, go around the world. So what is it actually that we travel with? What are we bringing to a specific place? Can we just send it or communicate it, or do we need to be present? Very often in our practice, we need to be present because we are, by what we do, influencing a certain context. Let's say we're doing Emirates. We are working with people deep out in the Pacific. So of course, we need to be together with them to understand their condition, their living form, and their way of life, to be able to add anything to it. That is not something you can read in a book or experience online. There's smells, there's anger, there's frustration, there's material, and we are artists who make form, who make examples, who are by definition making, and through that also proposing and being examples in a specific context. But overall, I agree with Anders. It is an open culture. There's an open mindset. There's open landscapes that we need. We do not need to isolate ourselves.
Yeah. So now we have kind of Anders and Bjørnstjerne kind of talking of being keeping the super global, and then we have Gitte and also me, because as you noticed, I put on the colors of the graphics for this talk series. After my meeting with the Prime Minister, it became red and white. So I admit that I kind of reflected on what she said, but kind of kept the global. And I'll just loop in because we had a question from the audience, and I'll just because it's, you can say, one of my questions to you, Gitte, and actually also to myself, is: are we bold enough as museums in this time to kind of keep the open mindset? And then there was also one of the audience saying, isn't there a chance that museums become suddenly nationalistic, kind of patriotic? And it's actually both a question to you and myself, having kind of the red and white graphics on the talk series. Sorry, I have an alarm at the museum going now. So this is because that's because I tried to do something I'm not allowed to, but I hope it will pass.
So maybe I should answer the question while we take off your sound.
I'll take off my sound.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, the Moderne said we are the National Gallery of Modern Art. So we have a national obligation. It's part of our, is our part of our being. So this really makes sense for me. And seen from a Swedish perspective, the political rhetoric in Denmark right now, because, I mean, I was early on, I thought I was a citizen in Denmark, but now all citizens in Denmark are named as Danes. We Danes together. So there's an extreme nationalistic rhetoric in Denmark, which might be the right way to do it. I don't experience that in Sweden at all. There's a much more like, this is a different way of dealing with it's very fact-based way of dealing with what's happening right now. So we don't have this. I don't feel that at all. I don't feel like dressing in. I'm actually dressed in the yellow right now. That's not because I represent Sweden. And I think we should be extremely aware of this nationalistic approach, because art is by no means nationalistic. The nationalistic art I've seen in my life as an art historian is really, really bad art. Good art transgresses. Good art, great art is critical, and it should be. So I think we should not mix up, the role of art into the society in a more general sense to this idea that, of course, a national gallery in a country should also support art from the country. And I mean, I really respect you, Anna, as being this extremely global citizen. I know you are, but you're still based in Ebeltoft. I mean, you didn't move your office to Shanghai or to New York. You're still rooted there. So I think we need to be aware of the roots we are having. And I think that when you, Bjørnstjerne, you talks about, being the collective way of working with art, this is also rooting in being in Denmark. Maybe a collective art group as yours will not emerge in another country. So we have to balance the relationship between our roots and what is the purpose. And the purpose should never be nationalistic.
So we are actually we are debating kind of the local kind of the essence of thing, and then mixed up in the global context. So we can agree, even though for the red and white graphics and the yellow shirt. And I'm also admit I'm half Swedish, so well, you can say we time is running, and it's really interesting discussion, and thanks for kind of elaborating in that way. And we we have a question also from the audience here saying that from every crisis, you will see there will be an output of innovation, and this also means what happens in arts and culture. And I can say, of course, it's quite early. We have another session in the fall, kind of debating what have we learned and what came out of this. But are there any of you seeing kind of the seeds or things happening right now that are quite interesting? Anders, you brought up that perhaps Arts Basel is not there anymore, and we have to kind of work in different ways when with a more closer distance in the art world. Are we seeing other things that kind of will affect the future?
I have a comment, but it's maybe you can supplement on the art side, but a little. I think for sure, like the future has arrived, at least in how we jumped 5 years ahead, and we became extremely digital, and that's what we're doing now. On the other hand, it's of course not really fun to sit and look all day into the screen, which we are doing, some of us, from morning to evening. So I hope that's not the future. I think also we got a challenge with art. Art has a materiality. So there's a certain limit to how much you can experience on a screen. But for sure things will change and they will not come back. I think there's a lot of denial. People think, okay, it's just a V thing and then things will be the same. For sure, I really don't think things are going to be the same. Things are definitely going to transform, and they're going to be more localized and they're going to be more digital. And the art world, as I said before, maybe it can be healthy for the art world to be like reset, I would call it, and get back to maybe some of the fundamentals, value-based, more value-driven. Maybe I'll listen to the professionals. It's just my first thought.
And Gitte, you can say your reflection on these kind of changes. Anders says we are going to stay to a lot of these things. Museums like Moderna and Kunsten are experiencing kind of going digital. And I know when you were the director of Kunsten, it was like a safe haven for kind of saying that we have to meet and we have to kind of gather around art. What does that mean at the moment? And what are the qualities that we are producing in terms of art in these? You have the sofa shows going on.
Mm. Well, what I've experienced is that within the first week of the crisis, it was all very, everybody were working digitally, and there was a really strong energy, and there still is. But there's also a longing for presence. There's a longing for being there. I mean, there is a reason why it's a different experience to be in front of the Matisse work from our collection than seeing it on a screen. It's different. It's a different experience. So there's this longing for being in the space with the art itself, with your body and with your senses. So I think what we should learn from that is, as a cultural institution, is there is a immediate feedback that is very interesting in the digital field, that we have a stronger reach, a broader reach. People we are in connection with a lot of people, and we should that's really something that we should take advantage of. We have like 40,000 people seeing one of our tours for people on the couch, and on a regular guided tour like 25 people. So this we can learn from, and I think also, I mean, now I'm directing this maybe to you, Bjørnstjerne, in your artistic practice. I mean, what you're doing is the public and the people that are in part of it. I mean, you don't make works of art that are just being there. And I mean, a swing where nobody is swinging at is like not the purpose of the swing. So I mean, you must also be challenged by this. I mean, what kind of energy does this digital new world brings into your practice? Sorry, Lasse, for posing a question.
No, that's the meaning. That's great.
Okay.
I would still say that you know, the digital sphere is for me more a supplement still. You know, I still believe in or do deeply trust the interrelation between us and also the surroundings that we choose to face. Like if there's a swing, we are motivated to sit on it. If you encounter a river, you try to either make a bridge to pass it or jump on a boat or try to swim. These are things that we cannot exchange with a virtual world, but we can supplement it. And I think there will be a lot of effort now into supplementing what is actually important. Again, that goes maybe back to it that I think that we will see a change in what we spend on. So what is it that we want to spend money on from now on? Because we maybe are shaking up a little bit, or not maybe, but we are shaking up a little bit. So there's a little bit more in, as I said earlier, in purpose and why we spend money and why we engage with something of value. So I again actually it's not a problem for us. It's actually the opposite, because just to go back to the landscape, I think there will be much more art going on outside the institutional framework, because we cannot be so many people inside a museum anymore. Like gigantic queues in front of MoMA, wherever they all want to see Picasso. You know, remember these lines? We have these big shows. I think that is a little bit dead now, and I am somewhat happy for this, because I think it's too much money being spent on all of this. You know, transforming, transporting, and so on, artworks all around the world. So I think for us it actually opens up for so many new possibilities by the people also who understand and have time also now and purpose to experience art also in public space and live with it more. So it becomes more part of our realities and not so much parallel things. So I think there's a lot of interesting and natural changes into being actually more physical oriented towards both material, art, and so forth. Of course, there's a little bit conflicting with that we have to keep distance, but if you understand that it's not, we are not so much inside boxes anymore. Maybe we have seen this as an opportunity to think out of the box, literally, but also sometimes to slow down. Personally, I was at the countryside for 6 weeks. Walking in the garden, had time to think, did have whatever Zoom, Skype calls and so on while I was cutting flowers, you know, because that's all of a sudden possible. But when I'm in the studio here, I relate to the studio, one meeting to the other, and so on and so on. All of a sudden, you could expand my own sphere by being somewhere else, and at the same time thinking and encountering with the flowers or whatever it might be. So I think that it opens up. And that is truly interesting to us. So of course, we also sell art, we sell work to collectors and so on, and there's a little bit of a slowdown there. But then again, there's an open mind more into actually investors who invest in impactful projects, both in investment but also in culture and art. So you want to more invest into something that also has impact. And again, we can then discuss what is impact, but that is more an individual perspective.
Thank you, all of you. We have a last question from the audience, and then we are running out of time. We have someone here saying, what can artists do to reach out to the general public, make art more accessible during the COVID crisis? I also miss their voice in these times. So, Bjørn, you just answered this, but in general, do we see artists being? Is it a difficult transition in these times?
I'm hoping, and again, I have to reflect on ourselves. So we do truly believe that what we do has to be expressed on more platform, has to be more accessible. That also means that you also have to be a little bit more confrontative, because overall idea about art is that it challenges and motivates transformation and perspective. So I think very good art is the art that is able to transform your way of thinking and for you to change maybe perspective or challenge the perspective you have. So I truly believe that also for artists, you know, we cannot no longer hide ourselves behind a gallerist or a curator or a museum. So we also much more, and I think we're also motivated now to be much more part of life. You know, art is part of life. It's not an isolated entity, right?
Anders, the last.
Yeah, no, but just some of the artists I know, in a way, I think artists here, in a way, besides, of course, they need to pay the rent and buy some food, they're very privileged to the rest of us because they are like living in their own world and they're producing, and great artworks to produce them takes time. So I think that's what I'm sensing. A lot of the artists, somehow their machine it's the rest of us who are at standstill and are challenged. Your artists are, of course, also, but somehow I see, in a way, art is maybe financially exposed, but mentally, I think it's a good time because art is this. Nothing can stop art, in my opinion. So.
Thank you, Anders. And Gitte, just a last reflection on.
Yeah, I think visual art is having a certain time, so we should also respect. I know from conversations with artists that they are really in their studio producing right now, but it takes some time. So we should expect an answer to this crisis artistically, but not immediately. And what I see, you know, when an artist cannot cast in bronze, they will do their works in paper. So there will be art also after this crisis.
Thank you, Gitte, Bjørnstjerne, and Anders. It's really been a pleasure, and thank you so much for giving your time to this project. It's important for us to stress that kind of all artists and freelancers that take part in this also get a fee. It's so important in these times, even though it's small. I think it's really interesting that we have been discussing kind of new things happening, kind of the distinction between the local and the global without being kind of nationalistic, but that there's a way, and Anders, the true globalist, and Gitte and I can find a way together, and also that new things emerge, and also saying that things takes time when we discuss art. And I think also what Bjørnstjerne said and what you said, Gitte, that also saying that for artists, it's a chance to have time and a space to produce, and so there's also good things coming with this. I'll just make a short commercial for the next talk. It's next Thursday, and the theme is what happens online. And we are so lucky that Mark-Christoph Wagner from Louisiana Channel will attend together with Troy Conratherian, who's the curator for architecture and digital initiatives at Guggenheim in New York. And then we have the Danish journalist and podcaster Christiane Vejlø with a fantastic podcast called Elektronista. So we are going to discuss what are actually happening online in the art and culture, because what I experienced is that a lot of things happen and good things happen, but also there's a lot of crap. So we'll also discuss that it's not only a quality to be online. I hope that people that attended today find this one of the better ones, where perhaps we'll get a review later on. But now, thanks for now, and looking forward next Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European time. We'll be back for more discussions.
Thank you. See you all.
Hey, bye.
Bye.